This week on A Brit in Poland, we go just south of Warsaw to a place called Góra Kalwaria, which I think is something to do with like a resurrection mound or something. So it's like a holy place. It's quite an old place. I think originally established around the 12th century. Also from here, it's quite an easy walk to get to Czersk Castle, which again, very old place, originally founded at about the kind of 12th century, with the modern fortification now actually built around the 14th, 15th century, and the home of Janusz I. So quite an interesting journey we've taken. Quite a large group of us today. We're just heading home now, but ultimately, I hope you enjoy the video. Lots of history and an interesting place for a day trip from Warsaw. Dzień dobry and welcome to A Brit in Poland. This channel is going to bring you everything you need to know about Poland. I am exploring the country, bringing you the history, trying to tell you about the culture and show you what it is really like to live here. So feel free to check out my other media, Instagram, Facebook, and I will share links to those in the comments. I also have a website, www.britlivinginpoland.com, where I collate my videos for easy to view manner. Also, you are welcome to contribute to my efforts through Patronite or Patreon, and all descriptions are available below the video. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and please come back for more by subscribing, liking, or commenting. Thank you very much. Do zobaczenia. So, as mentioned, Czersk is just south of Warsaw. Not that far at all, really, about 40 minutes by bus. So we first started looking around Góra Kalwaria, then headed off to Czersk Castle, which was not too much of a hike. Apologies for the quality of the video this time, because it was shot in winter, so maybe not the ideal time of year. So for sure, the city would look better in the sunshine. But Góra Kalwaria is a town with a population of about 12,000. It started off as a village operating back in the 13th century, and it began to take a greater role in Poland from 1666, when it became the property of the Bishop of Poznan. After the destruction of the village during the Swedish deluge, it was possible to redesign it with a system of Calvary roads in celebration of the Passion. And the design of the new village was based on medieval Jerusalem. Hence, in 1670, it was given city rights and renamed New Jerusalem, even having some soil put into the ground from Jerusalem. So, a lot of connection to Jerusalem here. It became one of the most important pilgrimage sites in the country. And the city was entirely intended for Catholics, with Dominicans, Franciscans, Bernardines, Piarists, and Marians being settled here. And Jews were forbidden from living in the city. At the end of the 18th and early 19th century, the city fell into decline, and most of the churches and chapels were demolished, and the ban on Jews was lifted. In fact, after this, Jews would become a dominant part of the population, and Góra Kalwaria would become one of the most important centers of Hasidism in Poland. Now, Góra Kalwaria has a strong connection with the army, dating back to 1819 to 1830. Corps of the bodyguard of the Tsar of Russia was stationed here, including various other regiments of the Russian army, and this would carry on until the 1850s. In 1863, there was a bit of a tragedy, as many of the residents, including the mayor, would help insurgents during the January uprising against Russia, and said people would sadly be deported to Siberia, where nothing good happens. From 1916, Polish forces would be stationed here, including artillery regiments, horse guards, custom and border guards. And in 1940, during World War II, the Germans established a ghetto for the thriving Jewish population. In 1941, this was liquidated and most of the Jews were sent to the Warsaw ghetto. Others were shot. At that time, it's hard to say who was luckier. In 1944, Labour Camp number 103 was established, and this was for Nazi war criminals and traitors of the Polish nation to be based. And also from 1945, various regiments such as the motorized regiment, the Masovian Brigade, and various other armed forces for Poland would be stationed here. So you can see it has a very strong, initially religious connection, and then a very strong military connection in this village, town, whatever you want to call it. It's not the biggest of places. You can easily walk around it in half a day, I'd say. I may not have seen every church because there were a lot of churches here, though a lot of them were demolished later on. You also have a connection to the Vistula River, and there's a bit of a beach if you go far enough, but given the time of year, we didn't quite get down to there. But we're now going to head over to Czersk, which is a rather important place in Polish history. So Czersk is actually originally a village dating back to the 11th century. It was one of the most important settlement centres in Mazovia, though the area was settled from the Stone Age. Due to its location along trade routes, it was on a slope and it was a crossing for the Vistula. It was a rather significant geographical location. In 1252, Czersk would gain political authority as an archdeaconry to the Poznan bishopric, and it would serve as a defensive stronghold, a castlani, and the capital of the provincial duchy from 1350 to 1870. And 1350 is also when it would gain city rights. These days, most people would probably just go to Czersk for the castle. This is the old market square. And I think you can see like Queen Bonner as one of the statues there. So you get these cool maps and things as we approach the castle, a bit of a timeline. So let's talk about the castle because there was quite a lot to say about it. So the castle that we now see was originally built by Janusz I around the turn of the 14th and 15th centuries. And this would be completed around 1410. It was originally built to defend against the Teutonic Order, though they were beaten rather soundly in 1410 at the Battle of Grunwald. However, in 1415, Prince Janusz would move his estate basically to Warsaw. Some say because the course of the Vistula River changed and the area became a bit less strategic. It would be ruled by Queen Bonner from the 16th century, and she would establish a brewery. Apparently there was a famous Czersk beer here. Different trades and craft centres, and it would be a manufacturer of the famous cloth Londrin. I don't know if I know about Londrin. However, the Swedish deluge would cause a decline of the city. As the Swedish troops were defeated in Varka to the south, they would retreat over to Czersk and occupy the castle there, and subsequently wreck the castle before abandoning it. There was a rebuilding attempt of the castle in 1762 by Grand Marshal of the Crown Franciszek Bielinski. However, its walls would later be demolished as Czersk fell into Prussian rule. One of the more significant people, at least from my point of view,
to live in the castle was a chap called Magnus. And he was actually the exiled son of Harold Godwinson, who you may know from the famous 1066 battle that occurred in the UK. He was actually a right-hand man to King Boleslav II and had a bit of like a Danish consortium with him. And he is actually the reason that the Czersk coat of arms would incorporate a wyvern into its design, it being a symbol from his crest in a traditionally English symbol, which, given that dragons are considered unlucky in Poland, it's not something you would see normally. His nephew Yuri Longarm actually founded Moscow, and DNA tests indicate he has 300 living descendants in Poland. He was found buried inside St. Peter's Chapel, which is said to be built by Magnus, and in a Danish-style burial with sword, spear, ring, and a bucket to feed his steed, and he died at the age of 60. The church you briefly saw before coming to the castle is called the Parish Church of the Transfiguration of the Lord, and the current one was built in the years 1805 to 1806 as a compensation to the Prussian government for the confiscation of the parish of the village of Linen. It was then rebuilt in 1900. So Czersk is a lovely castle to go around. There was a small entry fee, but even for ruins, that they make a strong effort to make it interesting, with the various exhibits inside the castle walls, a few of the restored rooms, various placards telling you about the history, and access to the towers, which give you some of these, rather impressive views. So you can really get a sense of the magnitude of this castle. And even though it was, let's say, historically significant for only a few years, it's still an impressive place. And it was actually built on top of previous strongholds, and the archaeological evidence backs all of this up. The reality of Magnus being the person buried and discovered during an archaeological dig, I think in the 1960s, is slightly dubious, but there is certain DNA evidence which matches things up, so I like to think it's true. In the texts in the castle, it mentions the ghost of Queen Bona actually haunting the castle. I'm not so sure of that because I've heard her haunting others. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found this interesting. Do zobaczenia.